Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Captive Audience. It's Dawn Anderson, and although you can't see her, Leslie Schneider is with us as well. Say good evening, Leslie.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being patient. My screen is not working properly, my video, so I'm just here in audio. But please put your comments in the chat so we can. Um, I will be that will be my job, is I'll be monitoring.
Absolutely. So please, sports fans, be sure and chat along so we can répondez-vous, as they say in French. And that's the extent of my French, so don't ask for anything more. So, this evening's opening rant, I'll call it civilizational collapse and the indications that in some quarters of the country, mostly the blue ones, we're in that. So, the first thing was I got to tell you a story. I was sitting with my mom the other day and watching Judge Judy as we are wont to do because she likes Judge Judy. And on this Judge Judy show, there was a mother who took her daughter, celebrated their daughter's birthday by taking her to a pole dancing lesson. No kidding. A mom taking her mother to a pole dancing lesson. Well, dad finds out, creates a scene because he doesn't want his daughter to learn how to pole dance. And mom is trying to convince Judge Judy that this is purely for exercise. Now, I don't know how this is a family show, so I don't have to say it, do I? But there is no man alive who thinks pole dancing is about exercise, and no decent man alive who's going to let his daughter go do that.
Well,
It's
there's
a
plenty of
stunt.
men. There's plenty of men that would make that sort of excuse if they were trying to get away with it.
Yeah, so
It's
yeah,
like,
this would be the kind of guy you don't want your daughter to be married to in the first place, or dating or anything else. But
yeah.
it's a new low in our culture that a woman would take their daughter to this. I mean, historically, women have been the defenders of the hearth and home, the culture. And if women are doing that stuff, I shudder to think what the men are doing. So let's tuck that away. And let me take you to the next story, which is even more horrifying if that's possible. Let me see if I can't pull the link to this because it's a fascinating story. Um, if not just from a sheer horrification, I'm not sure if that's a word. I just made a new word, horrification. So, Chicago,
Welcome.
of course, we're talking Chicago. A mother and her son were beaten to the point where they wound up in serious condition in the hospital by a group of 8 to 12-year-olds. Now, I didn't say 20-year-olds. I didn't say 30-year-olds. I said a group of 8 to 12-year-olds. A mob of bullies beaten into the point where they had to go to the hospital. They were stomping mom and child, kicking them in the head. I actually saw the video. They rubbed out their faces, of course. So this is no exaggeration. If you've not seen this video, it is absolutely one of the most horrifying things you can possibly see. Now, here's what's even more horrifying. This has been reported over and over again to the school, and the school never did anything. So these kids took the retribution out on the parents. That's how little regard they have for just basic human code of conduct. Now, one last one before we move on. For those of you who have not heard this, I'll send you the link for this as well. Because of course, what other city we talk? If it's not Portland, then you can rest assured your second best guess is Chicago, and that is, and this happened I think yesterday. A man set a woman on fire on the L in Chicago. Now, this suspect, 50 years old, faces federal terrorism charges for this gruesome attack that left the victim with very severe burns. Now, if that's not bad enough, this guy, he was arrested by Chicago police at least, get this, not 10 times, not 20 times, but 72 times over the past 30 years, with at least 15 of these arrests occurring since 2016. He's had 15 convictions, including criminal damage to government property, drug possession, and arson. In an incident in 2020, lit a government building on fire in downtown, and
Mhm.
the mayor and the governor simply refused to enforce the law. I saw an interview with the mayor where he was calling it racist to put people in jail. So
Wow.
let me just stop there. And any thoughts you'd like to offer up before I keep rambling here,
I mean,
Leslie?
I have so many thoughts. You mentioned the issue about the pole dancing and how women and mothers used to be the protectors of humanity. They were the kind, compassionate protectors who were always looking out. I mean, this new breed of women who we have. I mean, I saw it, in when I was on the school board, and then right after, these are the people that are advocating for the transing of their kids. These are the people that are advocating for boys coming into the bathrooms of their little girls, and the changing rooms of their their female athlete daughters. These are sad, angry, lost women who've been lied to by feminism, who have come to hate themselves and only see the value that they can bring if it's of a sexual nature or some sort of manipulative nature. This is what our culture has implanted in these women's minds, that they don't actually bring intrinsic value, that the only value that they bring is as a sexual object, or a tool of manipulation, of power grab in some way. And so then what they do is they insert their daughters into that role as well. And our men who've been sidelined because they've been told that they're useless, that they don't have a place, and in fact they should feel guilty about having a place, have become not just dethroned but like defanged. And then in some cases, if you're in California, you can lose your parental rights if you start to insert yourself and start to demand that there be more protections for your children, your daughters in particular. So I see this as not just one crazed woman. I see this as a trend in society. It's a degradation, and it's been going on for a couple generations in order to reach this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's so many things that I see, and you constantly pinch yourself and say, I can't believe it. And when you get back down to it, that thing that binds us together is that willingness to adhere to the moral code, like basic human behavior. And this takes 18 years to develop from the time of birth till 18 or 21. Not everyone obviously attains as far as they can on that. We're talking basic human behavior. So decency, concepts like respect for the elders, rule of law, don't throw trash in the ground, take out the garbage, don't cuss in front of elderly people, call old people Mr. and Miss, don't cut in line, man holds the door before a woman, stop at the red light, show up for work on time, honest days work for honest pay. These are like just basic precepts of the moral code, and it's not being delivered, and it must be delivered first by mom and dad at home for a minimum of 18 years, and mom and dad being coached by the church in terms of how to deliver it. Because when we don't do that, what we wind up with is the Judge Judy scene, the Chicago scene, the Seattle, the Baltimore, the St. Louis, the San Francisco. Basically, insert your favorite blue city. That's what you get. But the other side of that, to me, is this. It's also immoral to let career thugs rape, murder, and burn innocent women alive. And that's where it's completely the moral thing to do. If federalities need to step in and put a stop to that in these cities, then at some point that needs to happen.
Absolutely. Well, of course. I mean, the rational thought seems to have completely left the room in some of these cities, some of these communities. It absolutely makes no sense, and especially when I guess it just sort of goes to speak to how entrenched it is, how blinded people are, brainwashed they are, brain dead, I don't know what you want to call it, intentionally evil. You had that situation, where that poor Ukrainian, girl was murdered on the subway, and there's all this national attention for, the corrupt legal system, people being, released without bail, people being given chance after chance after chance. And then here we have another blue city where something very similar happens. You would think if you were a rational person focused on public safety, you would be scanning all the entire, police records, and you would be going down into the courts, and you would be monitoring what's going on in your own city, realizing, oh my goodness, we just had a national focus on an outrageous example that was totally preventable. And here we have another one. So again, it's just these people are clueless or intentionally evil. Which is it, Don?
Well, yeah, I think there is a cadre of people for whom it is intentionally evil. These are the strategic elites who want this. On the other hand, there are those who are just, well, it's advanced Trump derangement syndrome, and they simply don't care as long as it's anti-Trump. That's what they want to do. And I think that category is where you fall in with this mayor and the governor of Illinois. It's just incredible. And the mayor is like one of the most unpopular, maybe the most unpopular uh, from a polling perspective in his city, and yet he still advocates policies that are clearly destructive to the citizens, who need it the most because they just don't care. I mean, it'd be one thing if they said, we don't want Trump to send in troops, and then they did things to increase the number of police in their district, or more importantly, had lawyers, not lawyers, but their DAs would actually put people in jail and keep them there,
Yeah.
kind of like the old 3 strikes thing that they had out in California. You get so many of these, and you just don't get out. And here's a guy who clearly, and every time is these guys who clearly shouldn't be in the streets in the first place, but they're not doing that. So, and I think a large part of the function of this is that you have people who live in circumstances where they never see any media other than big media, so they're never getting this side of the story. I mean, many of them may not even be getting this story itself because they bury a lot of these stories. So we have to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, that could be true. I don't know. I think there's just so much hubris. They just feel like they're really above any sort of accountability, and that they just keep getting voted into office and they keep controlling the budget, and people just put up with it. They still have wealthy people there. They still have some businesses flourishing. They have rents are through the roof. They think that's all great. That means that they're a place that's desirable. So let's just keep doing things the way we want to. But there's going to be a reckoning. This can't be sustained.
Well, and the thing is, they never suffer the direct consequences of what they promote. I guarantee you that where the mayor and the governor live, they don't have these issues. In fact, I think it was Pritzker who was walking around on Michigan Avenue saying, "Look, it's all nice and wonderful," while he's surrounded by about 50 bodyguards. And we are talking Michigan Avenue. I know Chicago, and that's a really nice road. So yeah, you're unlikely to have it happen there, and you're sure as heck unlikely to have it when you're surrounded by 50 bodyguards. But they live in this isolated, insulated place. And then one more comment. I was going to respond to Lori's comment about getting kids out of public school. Here's the thing with that: people who are thinking people have and are capable of doing it have done it. I think the last time I looked, homeschooling has gone from like 3% to like 12% of the population. I'm going to guess that private school has done the same thing. People are putting their kids in private school in droves. The private schools around here are like full, right? So what you have left are people who either can't afford or don't have the wherewithal or just don't think that far, who are kind of stuck with this public school system, and there's no fixing that system. There's an old saying in business, personnel is policy, and you can have all the rules you want. The personnel are leftists, so they're going to do that stuff behind your back. That's what they're going to do. So the only way to quote unquote fix that system is to introduce competition to it through like a voucher system, so the parents can take their money and the money travels. That is the only way, outside of just burning the whole thing down, which I think that's unrealistic to think that we could do that. But that's hopefully lots of states will start doing that.
Yeah, I mean, as I can tell you, as a parent with a kid in public school, I don't have anybody at home to do the homeschool. I mean, I did it, and it takes a lot of time and dedication, and not everybody's kid is independent enough to do all of that on their own. So it's really tricky. And but yes, ideally everybody would get pulled out of the public school system. I mean, years ago they made it so that was it 2017, 2018, where they made it optional for people to join unions. And so there doesn't have to be a teachers union.
Mm-hmm.
You can still work in public education and not be part of the teachers union, but they
Mm-hmm.
have such a grip that I don't even think people know that.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they don't. And I think over time, um, like you meant the word unsustainable, I don't think it's sustainable long term for a couple of reasons. Number one, um, a lot of schools, and I'm sure this is true in California. I know it's true in Oregon and Washington. Less schools, there's less kids attending public school. There's a lot of schools in Portland, for example, that are half empty or more, and they're going to have to start closing them because the money follows the kids. The money's going to start going away. So that reason alone. And remember, one thing leftists love is they love depopulation. They love small families. They love people not having kids. It amazes me that you'd want to kill off your your clients, but that's what they're doing. So I think, but that alone is going to cause a dramatic shrinkage in their pool, which will dramatically reduce their influence because people who have money in the means aren't putting their kids in public school. So the population that you want to serve, you're shrinking that. And the people who have an option to not be affiliated with that also can afford to have kids and also can afford to either do it on their own, farm it out, hire somebody to do it, hire a tutor, anything but keep them out of the criminal public school system. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of kids go to religious schools, whether they be Catholic or Protestant. It's really at the end of the day, it's not because of the religion. They're going because they're safe.
Yeah.
I mean, I can send my kid here and they won't come back in the body bag, number one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they won't be misbehaving. Whether they're religious or not is irrelevant to these people, but they're getting them out of that environment.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, even a lot of religious schools. I mean, my kids were at a Christian school for a couple of years, and I mean, a lot of these schools are not really religious.
Absolutely.
It's more like, oh, we're going to go to chapel, but we're not going to care if you sleep. Or we're gonna do a prayer before. Like I was so impressed because they would pray before they took tests. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is, it's all just the habit building. But
Yeah.
it wasn't, there was plenty of, worldly behavior going on the rest of the school day,
Yeah.
so,
And,
I don't know.
and a lot of them are very secular in terms of what they teach. I
Yeah.
mean, but the one thing you do have though is you won't get shot. And teacher won't get cussed out, teacher won't get beat up for the most part.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure. For the most part. I mean, school shootings, I think, are so few and far between anyway, although the media makes it seem like there's one happening every day, but they're not. And, think of the number of schools that we have across the nation. Like that is not the threat. A higher threat is your kid, vaping, right? And so how much attention are you giving that, But yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's pretty interesting. But the one thing I had to mention though, and we talked about this a moment ago. I think you had brought up the issue around, and this is switching to international stuff, down in Guyana, which is near Venezuela. Do you want to just speak to that just a little bit, and we can go back and forth on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, the somehow I missed it, but there was a huge oil reserve found right off the coast of Guyana, multi-billions of barrels that they anticipate. Like this is the kind of oil field that turns people into Saudi princes, for generations to come. All right. So this little African country, has discovered with the help of prospectors, U.S. backed prospectors, Exxon Mobil and Chevron, discovered this. And all of a sudden, Maduro, Venezuela, is bringing up this a long settled land question, and is starting to, he's been having these ongoing discussions with Iran and Hamas and, of course, China and Russia. And while that's going on and the media is not talking about this, all of a sudden, the United States starts moving down carriers and personnel and, destroyers. And there's a lot of action down there. And people the media, of course, calling into question what exactly we're doing down there. And, it turns out we might be doing a lot of things down there. We certainly are
Well,
shooting, destroying drug cartel boats. That's handy. That's productive. But we could also be protecting, a sovereign nation with, from being plundered, by a communist, and completely destroying any chance that they had. I mean, here, like, this poor little country, has discovered a way to completely turn themselves around. And Maduro's just going to go in there, and his intention was to steal it,
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, and this goes back to the national media. Well, for a long time, I've kind of figured this out when I was in my early 20s. All the news does is just give you salacious sound. They never give you the detail, the depth. They give you sound bites, not information. So you have to go to other sources to get information, and then be willing to dig a little yourself, and then think a little for yourself. So you look at what's going on in Venezuela, and for sure, we have a problem with them basically killing. I think we said roughly in the neighborhood of 50,000 young people die from fentanyl overdoses in the United States. So that's a direct result of Mexico working hand in hand with China, which provides them with the base product to make fentanyl that they ship into this country. Venezuela has been working closely with the Chinese and the Russians, right? So remember we talked about asymmetrical warfare. Remember, this is not kinetic yet. But when you have countries that have nuclear weapons, they can't go to war with each other. Russia, the United States, China can't go to war with each other because they're nuclear powers. So how do you fight? Well, you fight asymmetrical war through proxy states. And in this case, the proxy state is Venezuela. And it looks like potentially Guyana. And so there's multiple reasons why we have to send the Navy down there. You have the fentanyl war we got to stop because they're trying to basically kill off our military-aged men, if you will, and women. That's what China's trying to do. Number one. Number two, to have an enemy state, basically a third world country on our border. And Mexico's just turned into like a narco state. Let's just face it, that's what that is. And now you have this giant find. And Guyana, by the way, is 100 miles off the coast of Venezuela. So it's right in the Western Hemisphere. And if you let these people, imagine these people with real money. So now you got petrodollars to go with your narco dollars. Imagine what you could do with that. I mean, essentially, that's what we have in the Middle East. Those guys will be nothing burgers, except they have petrodollars to buy these weapons to bring down buildings to create the slaughter that they did on Israel and to bring down the Twin Towers and all that other stuff, right? You can't do that without money. So those are the reasons we need to be there, because we are at war. I mean, gone are the days. I think most of us, we think about what we learned in history class. Oh, the United States declares war on Germany and Italy in World War I. Oh, the United States declared war on Japan and Germany and all those guys in World War II. But outside of that, think to yourself, how many declared wars have we had?
Yeah.
We went to war in Korea, that wasn't declared. We went to war in Vietnam, that wasn't declared. All of that stuff in the 80s and 90s, none of that was declared. We're not going to be seeing too many more declared wars. If we do see a declared war, I hope you have a bunker and space for me to crawl in there with you.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to say, Don, is the other aspect of the petrodollars is those are legitimate dollars. So now all of a sudden, these people, essentially drug cartels, can show up and start doing legitimate business, right, out in the open, because they're now using petrodollars. They're not using, drug dollars. So it's absolutely critical that we protect that, and we prevent Maduro from getting his hands on that, and any of his rotten partners.
Yeah, and I think this is the world for the foreseeable future. We're not going to have a Vietnam, a Korea, these major wars that everybody knows, and you have to draft people. Nope, it's going to be like 50 things going on at the same time.
Yeah. The other thing about the fentanyl crisis, that it's not just killing military age Americans, it's killing future productive citizens. This is the engine of our economy. This is our, this is our brilliance. This is our brain power. these are the people that we need in order to make our country grow and work and advance. So it's not just, shooting bullets. It's way, way bigger than that. And of course, if we don't have enough men, we can't have enough babies. So I mean, it's just, men and women, right? I mean, it's just all of it is it's just a a series of dominoes.
Oh, it's a multi-layered thing. When you think about the Western world, now we're going to go far afield, but I think it's fascinating. In the West, most countries, in fact, the countries with the highest fertility rates, if I recall, are the United States was one of them at 1.6. Boy, it was a couple of European countries that were like right around 1.6, but the rest of them are like 1.4, 1.3. What do you call it? Italy's at 1.1, and then there's Japan at like 0.7 or 8. And so is, South Korea. Not even at replacement rate. Yeah. So you will have civilizational collapse at some point. And that point's not 100 years from now. That point might be 25 or 30 years from now, when the average age of your population is something like 50 or 60. That ain't good. That ain't good when one citizen has to, when one working person has to support 3 people on Social Security, for example. Those aren't numbers that work. When we first launched Social Security, by the way, that ratio was 1 for 15, I think it was, right? So 15 people were working to support one person. That's completely doable. But now that's not where it is. Now you flip your head and you look at China. They're in serious trouble. And these are the things that they never tout to the public. Their population, some people think that it's much less than 1.2 billion. They think it might be as low as 700 million. Because remember, one thing communist regimes do is they lie like rugs about everything. So you have to go to other ways to kind of see what is the real population. So look at things like how much food is being imported to export, how many lights are on now versus, from space versus like 15 years ago. There's all these other ways you look and see, what is that real population? We know what they did to themselves back in the 70s and 80s with the one-child policies come back to bite them. Their replacement rate conservatively is, we're guessing, around 0.9 or 1. So all of this fear and worry, there's a lot of stuff out there talking about they're planning to attack Taiwan in the next 2 or 3 years. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But if I'm betting they won't, because they can't afford to lose the men. And you look at Ukraine and Russia and that same thing, the calculation is brutal math, but they're running these numbers. For the Russians, how many men can we lose and continue to do this? And the same for Ukraine, because at some point, it's like in World War II, the Japanese didn't have any more pilots to fly. It didn't matter how many airplanes you make. We just don't have any pilots. They all been shot down. So it's a very interesting thing to watch. And if China goes to war in Taiwan, and we know that's a hotspot now, because if you're paying attention to the news, they called out the Japanese prime minister and they messed with the wrong gal, because she has a backbone. And she's gotten with the Filipinos, and they're pretty much saying, hey, if we got to do it by ourselves, we do it ourselves. So, that's in. You sure you want to fight the Taiwanese, the Japanese, and the Filipinos? That's not even including us. So it's fascinating to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Don, what else you got?
What else? Oh, there's always something. I know what it was. Did you catch the one about Governor Abbott and Sharia law?
No. Okay, yeah. No.
This is pretty interesting stuff. So Governor Abbott, I can't remember which city in Texas decided that, so they're actually having secret Sharia courts. So what happens is you get these immigrants from places like Somalia, and they start setting up their own judicial system inside. Now, this has already happened in France and in a bunch of European countries. And they just decided, just like France, just like hands off. We just don't go in those neighborhoods. So they started enforcing their own law. Well, Abbott has said, not basically on my watch. I'm going to see if I can't find this article here.
I think in Minnesota that's happening too, because there's so many. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's happening in Minnesota. What's the town in Michigan where you come outside and you hear them like they have prayer 5 times a day blaring over the loudspeaker? It's Dearborn. One of the towns that used to be famous for making a lot of cars.
Dearborn.
Dearborn, yep. So
is it? Okay.
I think it's pretty sure it's Dearborn. That's already happening there. Let me see if I can't find this. Here we go.
I mean, I got to tell you, I know this is not PC, but when I remember being out in a restaurant, and it was right after 9/11. It was probably a year after 9/11, and there were a table of people who were speaking Arabic, and I just remember feeling like this anger welling up inside me. Like, how dare you? You are a guest in our country, and you are speaking the language of a group of people who just murdered us. Like, I'm not taking away from your culture and your language and who you are. Like, be you, but read the room, have the respect of your host country to just tamp that down. Speak English in public around me, because I don't know who you are. I mean, I'm not saying you're terrorists, but I don't know. You're speaking in a foreign language, a language of a country that, or of a people that we're at war with. So, I mean, if I were to walk outside my house and hear the call to prayer, the Muslim call to prayer.
Yeah. And
there's nothing you can do, because all the the authorities are just going along with it. They think it's great. They think it's tolerant.
Right. Yeah, because they don't have to live in the neighborhood with it for the time being. But historically, when you let a population come in and there's no effort to assimilate, because they don't view themselves as American. And they live in the same places, never learn the language, stay in that culture. And once it reaches critical mass, they're all about go along, get along until they reach critical mass. Once they reach critical mass, then you have what's happening in Nigeria, where if you're not following Sharia law, then let's just say you're in physical danger of being erased.
Yep.
And, fortunately, people are waking up to this fact that this is not a healthy thing. And this is one of the reasons why you go back to the immigration we had in the early 20th century. You had to take the Pledge of Allegiance. You had to pass the test. You couldn't get in unless you passed certain screenings. You couldn't come in and be immediately on the dole. You had to show the ability to take care of yourself. I mean, how fair is it to the citizens that we have now who need assistance that we're going to take money from them and give it to people from another country who need to be helped? That's like immoral in and of itself. You got to take care, before you can help somebody else's house, you got to take care of your own house. Once your own house is squared away, then you can look at that. And our own house needs fixing. And to be doing this doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about house. What was it that I just read that just came out recently about, public housing? And they're taking a look at, the inhabitants of public housing. And, turns out there's a lot of illegal aliens living in public housing. And so now they've set up a hotline. Was it Kristi Noem, or I can't remember who it was in the Trump administration, who they've set up a hotline. And that's open from like 8 to 8 every day. And then they have a email, or an email tip line. If you suspect any sort of illegal activity, drugs, human trafficking, gang activity, or if you suspect that somebody is not a citizen, you can report all of that activity and they will investigate. I mean,
I saw that. And the first thing you think is, well, why haven't they had that all along?
I mean, you talk about a housing crisis. Oh my gosh. They're like, everywhere you look, there's some rotten, infested little secret that, these corrupt government officials have been keeping that is preventing Americans from flourishing.
And see, these are the reasons why it's so, when we conservatives say small government, we mean the least amount of government assistance possible. And that amount should be as local as possible. So if let's just say, we'll say the state of Oregon. So if the state of Oregon wants to do something like that, the rest of the country can watch it and see whether it works or not. If it doesn't work, 49 other states can say, don't do what they're doing. Let's do what Texas is doing. So they don't take down all of us, right? And then the citizens of Oregon can make a decision around whether to reverse that or not. I mean, that's one of the beauties of the federal system. So, federal assistance, to my mind, I don't think it's a great idea. If California wants to do that, let California do it out of California's pockets. And then California won't be stealing from Maine to do something that benefits California
Right.
and vice versa. You'd even make the same thing within a state. I mean, the citizens of Washington, being in California, you may not be aware of this, but are you aware of the tunnel they built underneath Seattle? So it's called the Viaduct. So there's this huge freeway that was outside. It was an elevated freeway, been there forever, along the Seattle waterfront, blocked the view. I kid you not. And it wasn't very pretty. So the city decided they wanted to build an underground tunnel. I think it estimated $2 billion. It wound up costing $8 billion, of course, to build this thing. They did finish it. I've never been in it, but I used to travel there all the time. So I know the area very well. So my question for you is this: how much does that benefit the citizens of Spokane that the citizens of Seattle have a shorter commute? I just that's just or the citizens of Boston, for that matter, who got to participate in this scandal. And then, of course, there's the California scam with the giant, what was it, the rail system out there. I'm pretty sure that was federal dollars tied up in that. And I don't know how many billions they spent on that. And they got 10 miles of track laid.
Oh, it's yeah. Well, Trump's called for an investigation, and I love it.
Yeah, well, see, that should be limited to California. If Californians are paying for that directly, they would feel that more and be more likely to get up in arms about it.
Well, absolutely, and because and our officials, our state officials, would then have to go back to us and make that plea. Now what they're doing is they're saying they're making the plea, but they're softening the blow and kind of manipulating us with the Fed dollars. And so it's like, well, we've got this project underway, so don't you want to participate? Because if you don't, then it's only going to be half done, right? Instead of like, oh no, we can't even do anything, unless you guys vote on it and you start ponying up more money. I mean, people wouldn't be going for that at all.
Well, yeah, those projects the only way they work is they have incentives built into them. Like, you remember the earthquake in LA, and they basically told these contractors, you have these for every number of days you get this done early, you get X amount of dollars. They had that thing built and running. It was record time. I think it was like 6 months or something. It was amazing and then people wanted to cry because they made so much money. Well, no, look how much they saved taxpayers from being stuck in snarling traffic and all of that. They deserved every dollar they got. And we need to do something like that.
Yeah.
For all of this stuff. I mean, so like this rail thing, if you incentivize them and on the other hand, penalize them for being late, that's the other side of it. You get this incentive for being on time. The quality has to be there.
Yeah.
But if you don't get it done, then, well, this is what's going to cost you for every day you're late. Right.
Right. Yep.
But
and you won't be getting any new contracts.
Yep. But of course, we're talking, we have a results orientation, and liberals by definition don't have a results orientation. It's all about feel good.
It is. How do you feel? What is your truth?
Yep. Yeah. This is why they never go major in fields, by the way, where things are measurable. They like to go into things like humanities, where it's difficult to measure the result. You see them in engineering, you don't see them in business, you don't see them in science. You just don't, because you have to produce an outcome. They go into stuff where there's no outcome and nobody measures it. I mean, I do think everything's measurable, but these things are more difficult to measure. Let's put it that way.
Of course. It's funny. So here we are talking about, society, and there was a movie that came out that I first read the review and then I watched the movie, but it's called After the Hunt, and it's starring Julia Roberts, and that might be the only famous person in it.
Okay.
But it's called After the Hunt, and it takes place at Yale. Julia Roberts is a professor, an English professor, and she is put into a situation where a student, one of her PhD students, accuses one of her colleagues, also a professor, of raping her. And all of the staff, all of the faculty, and the entire administration immediately, without any investigation, without any discussion, fire the teacher and prop up the student. And Julia Roberts, who I don't think of as being a conservative, is in this role. And she's, her character is having, it really walks through the Me Too movement and how our society has gotten so whacked out of any like sensible form of justice. That all of these, that just because she said something, and there's so many things going against her story anyway. Like, I mean, this professor who she's accused also suspected her and confronted her about plagiarism in her thesis, caught her cheating on an exam several months before. There were some other suspicions about her, but none of that matters. She, she kind of gets a little bit in hot water, and all of a sudden she makes this claim so that she can save herself. And it's really a commentary on the motivations of these young women and how protected they were, and how just destructive and blind the administration and the staff, the faculty, are to just destroying other people's lives and not following any process of true justice.
Well, how many stories have we seen? It's hard to remember them all anymore. There's been so many. Remember, I want to say it was some lacrosse players at one of these schools back east. They did the same thing to them. Turned out that they were lying like dogs. There was a case back in New York. Was it the Tawana Brawley case, if I recall, where she claimed that she was raped and it was like Ku Klux Klan. It turned out she completely made the story up. So if you're a part of the right group, then there was a guy in Chicago. What was he? He claimed that a bunch of Trump's MAGA people beat him up, and and all of this Ku Klux Klan in Chicago. But so you get all kinds of benefit of the doubt if you look the right way and are the right gender, this kind of stuff. But put yourself in the shoes of if that's somebody's son. So there's a mother out there whose son is being treated like that. No one seems to stop and treat. That's somebody's husband that's going to be treated like that. And this is the thing, when you get to the left, it's all about feelings and emotion, and they just don't think about any of that stuff. And how at the end of the day, that affects everybody, including them.
Of course.
We always become victims. And if you look at any of these communist movements, these revolutionary movements, at the end of the day, they ended up eating, what do you call it? I call them the minions. The minions usually get eaten, and they usually get eaten first. That's just how it rolls.
Of course. I mean, you run out of victims. You have to start eating your own team,
right?
In order to survive.
Yeah. Now, speaking of movies, I just saw this when my son turned me on the other day. Have you seen this movie Chernobyl?
No, but it's an old one, right? It's an old one about. No, is it new?
No, this is newer, probably in the last year or two. It's a mini series kind of a thing.
Okay.
If you get a chance, and the reason I bring it up is the parallels between what happened with Chernobyl and what we just went through with the vaccine is like unbelievable. As I sit here watching, me and my wife are both commenting on it. I mean, you have a state that's trying to hide what really happened, lying through their nose, wouldn't tell the world about the other deaths that were occurring, covered it up. It was a health thing. It's just stunning. I mean, if you watch that, initially you're thinking, this is a very Russian story because it's so the sort of thing that happens in communist regimes. And then you look at what happened here, and we have a press that's still lying about it. And they're still not telling the whole truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, speaking of telling the truth, did you hear about how was it the CDC website, how they actually put up the autism links to vaccine? But then they left that original statement that that one congressman required them to leave on there that said something about there are no credible studies to support vaccines linked to autism. So they left that, and then they put a little note that said, we're leaving it here because Congressman Joe Schmo loser, wanted us to. But then they put the study right below it.
Yeah, they're not really quite yet ready to just press up. Yeah, I have that in my notes somewhere. But I had looked at that. That was one of the ones I had in here too. Let's see. Remarkable. The astonishing admissions that the claim vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence-based claim.
Yeah.
You know,
So says Mr. Science. Yeah.
it's a crack, but man, but you know, if they, I don't know what it looks like. I'm not sure if total admission ever happens in terms of just how bad this is. But you can hardly find anyone who's a halfway thinking person that doesn't know someone or several people who have gotten some disease too early in life to get it, or it's happened too fast out of nowhere. Um, the patterns are unbelievable. They just are.
Well, and it's not just this one. It's all
Mhm.
of them. You know that
Mhm.
we've been lied to for so long that we're just used to it. You know, and but you know you look around and if you spend any time near a school, near a classroom, I mean ADHD, autism, all these different learning disabilities are through the roof.
Yeah.
We never used to see this. We never saw this grow. And now all of a sudden, you know, like every 10th child is on the spectrum, you know, some degree.
Mhm.
Like where,
Yeah.
you know,
And the data's finally backing up our suspicions. I mean, you walk around and I don't need a study to tell me this, but it's nice when one does. And those have been now put out there. I can't remember the numbers are now, but there's a huge amounts more of this than there were in the 60s and 70s. And I
yeah,
know for me, just looking back on it, I can only think of there was like a couple of kids with Down syndrome. I mean, that's obvious. But there was like no one who what we might call the spectrum now.
yeah,
Autism, I
yeah.
can't think of that till even hearing of it till the 90s.
No, and I mean, children who had Down syndromes were not in our schools. Now, I
Mhm,
don't know if that was good or bad, but I mean, they were off. I mean, I would see them walking with their mom, you know,
mhm.
when they were 25, you know, or 45 or whatever. Like, I mean, there would be that scene every once in a while. It
Mhm.
wasn't every classroom
Yeah.
had several children on the spectrum, whether they have some sort of a physical sensitivity where they can't handle like you know, the tag in the back of their
Mhm.
or they can't handle I mean there's a whole there are whole clothing lines that are
Mhm.
dedicated to softness,
Yeah.
no tags, right?
Mhm.
um because of these issues that people are having, you know,
Yeah.
Tourette's. I mean, it's just everything is off the charts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyway, I just thought that was funny. I thought that was awesome. It was such a win and
Yeah.
such a it's just a little eye poke, you know.
Yeah. And I think over time, more and more people begin to wake up and realize, or at least the thinking part of the population. I think the thinking part, that 25%'s already figured that out. Now we got to seep into the next 25%. Does it begin to see, or at least ask the question, does that make sense? You've not given any two things. There's no evidence that it works, and you don't have any safety data to back it up. And these guys don't have any liability. Three strikes, you're out. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, yeah. There's so
I
many
would.
things to say about it, but
I would not take or buy anything where there's no liability. They have no liability. Why would you buy a chair where the manufacturer says, "Oh, you can't sue me if it falls apart," or buy a car that might blow up on the road? Oh, there's we're no liability, man. Hey, we just made it. You blew up on you. Sorry, you wouldn't do it. But we're supposed to put this stuff in our body. I never understood where people's willingness to just be mindless robots and just follow whatever Big Brother tells you to do. But we just had a big lesson. Hopefully enough people have paid attention. I think they have. I think they have. I wish it were more, but I think they have.
yeah, yeah. All right. What else?
Yeah.
What else, Don?
So, well, like, what have we got here? I had to mention. Maybe we mentioned that last time about University of Notre Dame. Did we mention that about University of Notre Dame? I have
No.
to poke them in the eye real quick because University of, I call it, they made it official that it's just another pagan institution. So basically, they dropped the school's historic Catholic mission from its staff values and adopted a refreshed, quote unquote, set of generic concepts like community. Instead, though it will still identify as a Catholic research institute. Right. So why would you change it in the first place? Now, my understanding is there was a bunch of public outcry over this, and so they then changed it, but they didn't change it back to the original. Um, So there you go. This is an institution that I think when Obama went to speak there, they covered. I can't remember, was some iconic painting or mural because it might offend him. It was a religious thing, right? Of course. It was either Notre Dame or it might have been Catholic University in D.C. It was one of the two. Anyways, they all behave like this.
Well, that's what we're talking about, is how these, religious schools are not really that religious anymore.
Right.
They're embarrassed. I mean, it's kind of like all the pastors that just want to fill the church and they are not speaking the message. It's just, yeah. But I mean, who would have, when you say public outcry, what public? Were they alumni or were they just people on the street?
No, these were the what you might call the conservative Catholics. So there's a cadre of them who still make noise, right? But so there was enough pressure. Because remember, I'm going to guess a significant number of these people are donors. Why you continue to donate to them, I don't know. That's a whole other thing. But it's tough to change what you've done probably as a family tradition for generations. It's hard to walk away from that brand, but that brand has walked away from you. Because remember, the whole thing is it's personnel is policy.
Yeah.
And you can change the policies till the cows come home. Until you change the people, nothing's changing. This is one of the reasons why when a new coach comes to a football team, they don't keep the old coaches. They get rid of them and bring their own. This is why when there's a new administration, they don't keep the old ones. They bring in their own. We saw what happened with Trump the first time around. He kept too many people from the old place, and look what happened. You got to bring your own. If you want loyalty and if you want people on the same page as you, you got to bring your own.
Yeah.
And it's true of public schools as well. You can pass all the laws you want. At the end of the day, if the personnel don't change, nothing's changing.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
So the answer to that is either you dismantle the thing or you introduce competition to it that forces it to either lose money or change. And that's the more palatable choice.
Yeah. We had a situation going on here in San Diego. There's a university called Point Loma Nazarene University.
Oh, yeah. I toured that with my son, actually.
Okay. I mean, they've always had a really great reputation. Well, apparently they are not allowing a Turning Point USA chapter on their campus. And they're doing the same thing. They are not Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And, like these people have just infested all the places. I mean, I want to say, all the sacred places. And in this case, it's true. I mean, it's real.
Mm-hmm. I hate to call it a weak point because that's not what it is. I could probably come up with better language than this. But with I'll call it religious people, the weak point in Christianity is the desire to be helpful and kind and all of that stuff. So it's very hard for these people to understand the concept that there's also the other side of that is you have to be firm and tell people what they need to hear. It's not loving to tell somebody that they can keep doing something that's destroying them and society.
No.
And so when it comes to things like the biblical adage around helping your brother, for example, right? That means that you personally are supposed to help the brother. There's nowhere in there where it says the government's supposed to do it. And so a lot of these church groups will advocate that the government do these things. No, that's our job. That's not the government's job.
There's also
go ahead.
There's also the accountability, the Christian accountability. If you see your brother doing something wrong, you go talk to him. If he doesn't listen to you, you go back and you get a couple of of other Christian followers, and then you go talk to him. And if he still doesn't change his behavior, he's out.
Yeah, that's how it has to roll.
I mean, that's what John MacArthur used to do. I mean, I know personally because I have a friend whose family the sister was called out in the middle of the service. Yeah. She had been warned repeatedly, like, quit doing drugs, quit, messing around, quit doing all these things. She wouldn't do it. And she came to church and she sat right next to, my friend with her family. And John MacArthur stood up and said, "You've got to go."
It is hard, but it has to be. It's otherwise the rotten apple, it's going to permeate everything else.
It's a cancer. Absolutely. I mean, that is in the books. So that I don't understand how our leaders are not doing that. I mean, that you are called to do that. And you cannot maintain purity of your faith and your flock. I mean, Paul calls it out. You know, you've got to get rid of the people who are spouting false doctrine. And some of those people are pastors.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And the reason for that is it's easier to be liked, and it's easier to be nice. And you will always find people who want to go someplace where they don't get called out. You know, if I'm a fatty and I don't want to work out, but I want to be accepted, I don't want to go someplace that's telling me what I need to do and how I need to fix it, because I don't want to do those things.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of, we call them Dr. Feel Good churches, you know, and that's where people go and they get to shout and, and sing and feel good and go home and keep doing right what they were doing. When the reality is probably you should go to church and leave feeling, how do I say it? Connected, or at least a little stressed that I need to maybe work on myself in an area.
Yeah, I said convicted, not connected.
Oh, convicted, that's it, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm sitting there in church, and I'm hearing the same message as somebody who's cheating on their wife, and we all walk out of church feeling affirmed in who we are and what we're doing, I'm in the wrong place.
That's not cutting it.
No, I mean, like, for even though if I were to like sit and evaluate the sins that I've committed in my life and compare it to somebody else, I might feel pretty good, right? But I'm not, right? You still have to walk out of that place feeling like, wow, I need to be better. And and thank God he's there to help us get through that. Thank God he's forgiven us. Thank God we wake up every day, every moment forgiven and given a new opportunity. Thank God for that. And we should feel that. That should burn in us.
I think most of us go, a lot of us anyway, we go like, if you want to feel good, go to a rock concert or something, right? We go with the mindset that, that you would take to a concert or a ball game. Well, it's not supposed to be entertaining and all of that stuff. It's supposed to be a place where you go find out what you need to work on and how you can get better. And that by itself is, I don't say this is going to be horrible, painful, but it's got to be like, okay, I got to work on that. Like if you're working out to be in, you go to the gym and you're supposed to leave a little tired, a little sore, a little, okay, I know I need to work on my abs or whatever it is, right? You're not supposed to walk out of there thinking, oh, I'm great. Then why go in the first place if you're great?
Yeah, I spent the whole time looking in the mirror. Woo!
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't had that problem in a long time. I think that ends at about 22, somewhere in there.
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah. Every decade I look back and go, why was I insecure at all? I was good, right? Every decade you look back and go, it's for the good days.
Why didn't I appreciate that? It's funny. I was just yesterday, I'll tell you this last story. I went to Eugene. And are you familiar with, who Steve Prefontaine is, right? Prefontaine?
No.
So Steve Prefontaine was probably the greatest middle distance runner in American history. He was 72 Olympics in Munich. He was only like 18, wound up coming in fourth place in like the 5 and 10,000 meters. And the only reason he lost was because the Russians cheated big time. This all came out later when the wall fell. But if you look at it, he's an icon at the University of Oregon. Anyway, he dies in a car wreck in 1974. And after that, they built these trails called Prees Trails. And they're running trails that are like kind of all over, and they're beautiful. They follow the Willamette River. They're on this cushion kind of sawdust thing. And I used to run that back in the day. So it was nothing to go out. Me and my roommates go run 4 or 5 miles. Like literally just fly. And I remember just flying. And I wasn't a runner, but my roommates were all on the track team. So it was a struggle for me to keep up. They were flying for sure. And so I was back down there 2 days ago. And they also have these beautiful bike paths that follow the trails. So I did about 18 miles on the bike, which is pretty easy for me because that's what I do. But I remember riding on the bike, looking at those trails, thinking, gosh, I remember flying on those trails. I couldn't run. I don't think I can run a mile now. You just look at that and you think, wow, how fast is, I hate to tell you how many years ago it was. Let's just say it was over 4 decades though. It's crazy to think, but it ain't the same body.
It's the mind that doesn't change. It's the body that does.
Oh yeah.
I still feel like a big kid, stubbing my toe and getting dirty, and
Right.
I look in the mirror and I'm like, what was that? What is,
Who is that
yeah,
person?
who's paying my bills? That looks like an adult. I'm not an adult.
Well, never lose that. You
Yeah.
don't want to lose that.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
Well, all right. Well, we have reached the top of the hour for sure. So it's time for us to say, adios, as they say. And,
ADOs. Yeah.
yeah, don't
Adieu.
you love
Yeah.
that? Adieu.
You're so international, Don. Yeah.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We are so blessed to be born in the country we were born
Yes,
in.
we are. Yes, we
At the
are.
time we're here. And your thoughts, Leslie?
No, you're right. We are absolutely in the very best place in the world for all the problems and all the navel gazing that we can do, which we do every week. And there's a lot to be fixed, but we are where in the world else would we want to be? Nowhere. And we are blessed that we have the sun on our back and freedom in front of us. We have health and family and just peace. We have peace in our country. Many, many places in the world can't say that. And so I'm just incredibly grateful for that.
The rest of the world will give their right eye tooth to come here, and they do. And they do. All right. So good night, everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving holiday. I'll see you next week, Leslie.
All righty. Bye, Don.
Good night out. Bye-bye.